Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Between Two Brokers. It's Schmoopy time. Thank you so much, dear listener, for writing into podcast@smithspencer.com. Dear Schmoopy, I don't get it. The market seems to be crazy again with multiple offers. Then some homes sit for a while, then have multiple offers after a week or two. And then there are homes like my neighbor's house that has been for sale for months now. It's absolutely gorgeous. My question is basically, why do some homes sit? I can't figure out why their house is still for sale. It is beautiful and in a great location. Answer this question, Schmoopy.
Without knowing anything else, it's not priced well.
Right.
Is all I can say about your neighbor's home. And yeah, the market is crazy again. And I will say, I have noticed an influx of showings all at the same time. And then I'll go 4 or 5 days without any showings on a couple of my listings. And I think people are reacting to the changing market and what happens with interest rates. Maybe. I don't know what else I don't know how it could be another coincidence, but I will get 4 showings in one day and then go 4 days without a showing. It's weird. But yeah, I assume this person is local because I don't know what's happening in any other market, but Charleston, I think it will weather any kind of market storm. It's just such a special place, and we have job sectors across the boards in all industries. And it's just such a desirable place to live as a primary home, as a secondary home. And yeah, we're in multiple offers again. And I mean, I was even in a multiple offer situation on an off market home. So, I mean, for buttoned up houses in desirable locations that are priced well, expect to compete. Sorry about it.
Of course you think your neighbor's house is gorgeous. I get that because it's like everyone thinks their neighborhood is the best and whatever. But, I have to say that I do get a little bit annoyed because every single day I get text messages from people that are not here in town, and they're like, why hasn't this sold? Number one question I get, why hasn't this sold? I mean, the answer is price. It doesn't matter. It could be backing up to a highway. It could, I can look at a listing and tell certain things, but ultimately everything has value at a certain price. I think that, when I'm advising a seller, I'm telling them to price their home within about 5% of what I consider market value to be. So, I'll go in, I'll look at price per square foot, I'll look at what's for sale, I'll give them a range, and as long as they're in there, then they're going to be fine. And if they don't get an offer within the first week in this market, then they're priced too high.
Yeah.
So, that's always the answer. And, the what's wrong with it question, I just please I love all of you, but stop asking me that fucking question, okay? Just stop. Price. But yeah, I mean, we are really, the market has been absolutely crazy and it's difficult to navigate. And actually, while we're on the subject, we did get another question that I think maybe we can roll into this. Okay. Which is, we had an agent write in and ask us, how do you advise your clients to write a competitive offer in a multiple offer situation without going overboard?
Well, overboard is up to them.
Up to the client.
Up to the client. That's not your call to make.
So first question in that situation is, do you want to get this at all costs?
Right.
Or are you okay if we pass? So you as the agent need to know that answer. Are we going to be crazy or reasonable?
And one thing I'll do, because we had, this hasn't happened to me recently, but an agent in our office who is new-ish called and asked for my advice. And he was in a multiple offer situation. This house, which was actually going to be torn down, so it was really lot value, had been on the market one day. And he was not a cash buyer, but he was so confident that he could get a loan that he wanted to waive his financing contingency, did not want an appraisal, wasn't going to do any inspections. That's fine. You're going to tear the house down anyway. Like, did not want even one day of due diligence. And when our agent called to, walk through this with me, I said, okay, a lot of this stuff is really foolish. And if he's insistent on doing this, then I want you to send him an email saying all of this, that you advise against not including a financing contingency. You advise against not including an appraisal contingency or some language that you only cover an appraisal gap up to, X amount of dollars. And I need him to respond to you that says, I understand what I'm offering. Mm-hmm. Because there are so many buyers that I'm reading about that threw everything out the window in the height of multiple offers during COVID that are now going back and suing their agents because they're like, oh, I didn't know I should have had an inspection. I will never, ever advise my people to waive an inspection. Mm-hmm. You can go over on price. You can waive an appraisal if you want to. Mm-hmm. You can do a really short due diligence. You can pay for the seller's closing costs. There are other ways to get creative, but waiving an inspection is a fucking idiotic move.
I mean, unless you're tearing a house down.
Unless you're tearing a house down.
But then you still have to do due diligence.
You need due diligence.
Because, can
you build what you want there?
Exactly. Because we have trees here that you have to think about. What if there's an easement, like some kind of drain pipe that goes through the backyard?
There's historic properties that can't be torn down.
Right.
I mean, there's lots of that you need to do at least a day of I know. Feel confident in
I know. And I really, that's the thing. I mean, believe me, we're approached every single day with buyers that want to do things that they simply cannot do. And through our experience, we know that they can't do it. But newer agents that don't, they don't know what they don't know. And they don't know that, Old Village, I know it's very, very difficult to get things done, but you also just can't tear a house down there.
Right.
So, I'm sure people have purchased properties, and thankfully values have gone up so they can resell them if they can't do what they want. But sometimes you'll look at a property and you'll see that it has, sometimes it's a lot, or sometimes it's an investment property, and it comes back on the market every single year. And it's because the investor can't do what they want. They didn't do their due diligence at the time. Yep. So that's super concerning. So, your agent is responsible for a lot in terms of knowing the area and kind of what questions to ask. But it's your responsibility. I mean, buyer beware. It's your responsibility as the buyer to tell your agent exactly what your goals are and exactly what you want to do, so they know the questions to ask. Because what if they don't know? If you never mention wanting to put a pool in the backyard, I'm not going to bring up the fact that there's a giant live oak in the middle of the backyard and you're not going to be able to put a pool.
Right. We're not mind readers.
Right. So I'll usually ask the question, because I know what to look for. If I see the tree in the backyard, I'll be like, hey, do you want to put a pool? But not it's your responsibility to tell them what you want to do. If you want to do an addition down the road, you need to tell them. If there's anything that you plan to do, you need to tell your agent about it so they can say, at least look through the HOA docs and make sure that you can do certain things. Most HOAs, you have to get approval for putting up a regular old privacy fence or painting the exterior of your house, Yep. Some HOAs have rules about especially condos, the number of pets and size of pets. I mean, it's all this stuff that, again, there's so much, we can't possibly keep track of everything. So you need to make sure that you communicate with your agent about it. Yeah.
And as an agent, please CYA. Mm-hmm. I always send an email with the terms of the offer that we're going to make. And if someone wants to waive an appraisal contingency, please spell out in an email exactly what that means. Mm-hmm. You understand that if this comes in at $800,000 and we're under contract at $900,000, you're responsible for that extra $100,000 if you're getting financing.
Yeah.
But by unchecking that box, this is what you are signing up for. And I always say, please respond to me via this email. Don't call me. Mm-hmm. And so you understand the terms of the offer.
Mm-hmm. Back to the agent's question about what makes an offer competitive. Most of the time cash is, the number one thing that's going to make an offer competitive, you would think would be price, but that's not always the case. I've had a couple situations where a seller has taken a lower offer that they found to be more attractive from a timing perspective, or they liked the buyer. But, highest price, not necessarily the shortest closing window. You need to call the listing agent and find out the date that the seller wants to close.
Right.
Do they want to rent back? As is usually attractive. If you're buying an older house and you want to protect your buyer, you can put in a term in there like buyer agrees to accept property and as is condition unless repairs exceed $5,000 or $10,000, meaning if there is something major, then the buyer has some recourse and can ask the seller to cure those problems. But yeah, I mean, the least amount of contingencies and basically just asking the listing agent what the seller is looking for. Another thing that I think is is a practice that I employ is I do not broker okay, by the way, I broker furniture all the time again these days for whatever reason, but I do not get into furniture negotiations until after my deal is all done. And after repair negotiations are done, because that can piss people off. Like sometimes the seller wants like 80 or 90% of what they paid for something. And then, you send it to the buyer and the buyer's like, these people are nuts. Fine if the buyer thinks that people are nuts after all this stuff is done. Right. So, I think one thing at a time. Get your deal wrapped up, get your repairs wrapped up, and then talk about personal items.
Yeah. Don't muddy the contract with furniture.
Anyway, thank you so much for writing in to podcast@smithspencer.com. We really appreciate your questions, and we really appreciate you listening, and we will see you next time.